On today's episode of 25 Days of Yawn, never mind, just messed the whole intro up. Anyway, if you're a self-sabotager, this live is for you. Today we are going to talk about what is self-sabotaging, what causes self-sabotaging, what are the examples of self-sabotaging, and then I'm not going to leave you hanging. We're going to talk about some potential resolutions to work through our self-sabotaging behavior. What I initially wanted to start the live with is, if you're a self-sabotager, you know what, clap your hands, because that's me. I definitely have some self-sabotaging behavior, but welcome to day 5 of today's topic. Let's talk self-sabotaging. So let me ask you, before I actually give out this definition of self-sabotaging, but to you, if you are one that experiences self-sabotaging, give me an example of some self-sabotaging behavior that you may perhaps recently have performed. I'll give you like a minute to think about it and to answer it. And I'm also looking down because I have some notes that I compiled this morning for today's talk as well. I know one self-sabotaging behavior that I have is always feeling like I have to be in control, so I don't ask for help all the time. Instead of asking for help, I will suffer. So, I'll suffer instead of just letting people help me or expressing my needs, which that is something that we'll definitely talk about as well. So let's get into the origin of self-sabotaging. Self-sabotaging initially doesn't start as self-sabotaging, but it's a behavior that we developed to be able to adjust to a particular situation or circumstance. That situation or circumstance can be a trauma. And the causes of, or the influence rather, of this self-sabotaging behavior can be patterns that we learn from childhood. I know for me, some of the self-sabotaging behavior that I exhibit come from learned behavior from the adults in my family. Also, it can come from former relationship dynamics. Some of the behavior that we develop that self-sabotaging may come from being in a relationship with a narcissist, may come from being in a relationship with someone who has their own traumas, or someone who is emotionally detached, etc., etc. Also, it can come from the fear of failure, and then it also can come from, as I mentioned, for me personally, a need for control. So what are some examples of self-sabotaging behavior? I have a list of about 7. So number 1 is blaming others when things go wrong. I definitely used to do this, and it inspired my podcast, If I Knew Better, Why Didn't I Do Better? Before I even started to take accountability in my own life, I started to blame other people. I started to look at the external factors instead of also incorporating the internal factors in the blame game. And I realized that when you're always blaming people and you're not taking the time to look within and to see what role you play, all you're doing is prohibiting yourself from having the opportunity to learn and to grow. Number 2 is giving up so easily. And this could be because you just have this fear of failure, and so your trauma response and your self-sabotaging response is to flee. You don't put your all in things. You're always ready to quit on something. So you may have a fear of not getting a promotion, so you don't work as hard, or you may have a fear of achieving a fitness goal, so you may buy the gym subscription, but you don't hold yourself accountable to being consistent and going to the gym. Or you've been hurt so many times by people and you are really fed up, but you lack believing that once you open your mouth and you tell people how you feel, that you will be able to really put people in a position to treat you better. You just give up on relationships. You'll break up with people, you break up with friends, etc. Number 3 is procrastination. And this is coming from feeling overwhelmed. I've talked to a couple of people that feel like procrastination is a problem that they have right now. And I always tell them maybe I should say this for later. No, I'll just say it now. I always tell them, when you have a task or a goal, and if it seems too big, if you feel like it's something that's going to make you feel overwhelmed, break that down into small pieces, daily doable actions. That way you don't feel like you need to procrastinate, and that fear of you actually getting it done won't be a barrier, and you won't sabotage a project, or whatever your goal is. Also, it can come from having a difficulty with time management. I was talking to someone the other day that told me that they feel like they've always been someone who moved slowly, and they beat themselves up about it. And I told them, while it's okay to move at your own pace, perhaps making proper decisions to be able to kind of have the best of both worlds, move at your own pace but still be punctual, is doable. What you can do is rise early. Rise early and give yourself enough time to not feel rushed, and to be able to move at your own pace but still afford time to get to the appointment, make the meeting, or whatever it is that you're struggling with time management. It is doable. And then also doubting your ability or skills. That negative self-talk that makes us think that we're not capable, we're not able to get that degree, get that high paying job, find a partner, lose weight, get the house, get the car, be a business owner, be a parent, whatever it is. That negative self-talk would make us sabotage in a way where we don't show up and we don't go out and chase. I don't want to say chase. We don't go out and start living daily with intention to achieve what it is that we want. Number 4, combative behavior. This is something that I've experienced as well in my childhood, and a behavior that I've actually performed in my relationships. You're easily offended. My feelings can get hurt like that. A tone of voice, looking at body language, body cues, I can easily get offended. And when I feel offended, I get into defense mode. Also, having difficulty expressing yourself. Hello, I grew up, as I tell my spouse, I tell people that I'm close with, I've even told y'all, I grew up in an environment where I wasn't welcome to express myself. So this inability of finding comfort and conviction in expressing myself as a child just developed me into an adult that really struggles to express how hurt I am or disappointed I am, or if someone says something or does something that I don't like, opening up and honoring myself. So what happens when you do this is that you become someone who relies on passive aggressiveness. And I have done that. Here's a story. When I was a child, I was a teenager. When I was a teenager, I was visiting my grandmother's best friend during the summer, and she accused me of something that was incorrect. And I was so upset. I was, number one, hurt, but I was so upset by this accusation that I chose to starve myself as opposed to eat the food that was in her home, because it was her home. It's like, I don't want anything. I don't want to feel like I need to rely on you. I think I fasted for about 10 hours before I gave in and realized that she's not being hurt. She's not being impacted. She doesn't even know what I'm doing. I'm choosing to hurt my own self. And that would not be the last time that I've ever chosen to self-sabotage in a situation that resulted in actually me being the one hurt. Me being the one consumed or obsessing over the situation, while the other people are just living life normal, not even knowing that what's the internal war that's going on inside. And then lastly, it says provoking arguments with others. Now let's go into number 5. Number 5 is dating incompatible people. That was something that I experienced as well. And what it means by dating incompatible people is you actually know that this person does not align with you value-wise, does not align with you with the end goal of perhaps maybe marriage, just is not compatible. They're just completely not your style. They're someone that's going to actually add more destruction or unhealthiness to relationship than healthiness and construction. And so what this also showed me when I started to do my own healing is that, and I actually watched a YouTube video about this, sometimes when we sabotage our love life and we choose partners that are not compatible with us, sometimes that stems from trying to rectify or trying to reconciliate a toxic relationship with maybe our mother or maybe our father. And so what we do, let's use the example of a father. What we may do is, like, say we grew up with a father that is emotionally distant. Hello? And so you grow into this woman and you start to date and you start to fall in love and you open yourself up to perhaps, or attracting perhaps, men that are also emotionally distant. And while they exude characteristics that are so familiar to your father, you may not be cognizant that there is a correlation, but they behave in ways that you definitely don't like. But you stick around, you try to force yourself to be in those relationships, you try to make it work, because ultimately what you may be doing is trying to make it work on behalf of your inner child, trying to rectify that situation based on your inner child, trying to force them to change and be emotionally available, when if they're showing you who they are and they're showing you that they're not going to change, why are you sticking around? Something to ask yourself, something that I had to ask myself. Also, I just said it, forcing relationships that you need to call a dub. I've definitely done that. One of the biggest traumas, one of the biggest life-changing experiences that I've had in my 30 years of life came as a result of trying to force a relationship as a trauma response. Maybe one day I'll tell that story. I'm not really comfortable saying it on a big platform as this, but people that I work with, when it's appropriate, I do share that story. But I learned my lesson from forcing relationships, and I'm so grateful to God that in my experience of forcing relationships in the past, that I don't have lingering wounds of those experiences. All I have are stories. Thank God. All right, number 6 is trouble stating your needs. Hello. I am like now in my 29th, 30th year of life, just started really feeling deep in my core that it's about time to start stating my needs, and seeing how when I don't, how things don't play out the way that I need them to. And that, as I mentioned earlier, I'm only hurting myself. So you don't ask for help. You want to be the one that's like, dun, 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 superwoman taking care of everything, knowing that perhaps you should, like for example, I used to carry heavy things like groceries and stuff like that. And if I was not in the best of mood, or I was mad at somebody, instead of saying, hey, I need your help, I'm trying to, ego enters the chat, and I'm sabotaging my health, my body, by putting my body through a strain of lifting heavy things. Or knowing that I could save time working smarter instead of harder, I'll choose to work harder instead of asking for help. Also, letting people walk all over you, letting people say to you what it is they want to say in disrespectful manners, letting people take advantage of you. I was just venting to my husband this morning after posting on my Facebook. So I asked on Facebook, have any of my Facebook friends ever respectfully told someone that they don't like them? And I told my husband that I posted the status, and he asked me, like, why is it so important to respectfully tell a person that you don't like them? And I know that the reason why it's so important to me in my life right now is because I've never felt comfortable doing that from small. And I realized that it's not that I want closure, but I want to honor my voice, and I want to honor myself to tell people how I feel about them, especially when they have hurt me. You know what I'm saying? And so when we let people walk all over us and we don't say anything about it, we're sabotaging our honor. We're sabotaging our worth, so to speak, because we're basically enabling that behavior. When I was doing some research this morning, another example that was given in an article was, say you go to the market, you only want to get, say, a bag of chips. You're in line to go next. Here come a woman with a full cart of 20 plus items, and she cuts in front of you. And the clerk or the self-checkout is available, and she goes and she pays for her. She goes to like swipe and scan her stuff. Whole time you was next up, and you don't say nothing about it. If you don't check people and then you keep allowing that behavior, you're constantly going to allow any and everybody to continue to do that, and your voice is going to get muddled. You're gonna have to start doing the work to amplify your voice. Also, the last part was don't speak up for yourself. I think that really ties in with letting people walk all over you. And then the last one, number 7, is putting yourself down. I remember when I was in school, I used to take a test and be talking to myself and be like, oh, you're so stupid. Like, even to this day, I may say negative things like that to myself. But yeah, like you always saying I can't, or I won't, or you magnify your mistakes to the point where you don't think that you're capable of getting past that mistake and still having perseverance and achieving. And then, like I mentioned before, like that negative self-talk. It's a phrase that I'm trying to think. Oh, self-fulfilling prophecy. You allow your negative self-talk to become your truth to the point that you start developing a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you continue to put yourself down and you believe these attributes that you give yourself, then you're gonna start standing in it. I remember talking to my mom, and she's like, if someone keeps calling you something, then you're gonna internalize that, and then you're gonna live a self-fulfilling prophecy. But we don't understand our own way of talking about ourselves, our own way of defining ourselves, and how that also can contribute to that negative self-fulfilling prophecy as well. So they are the 7. Let me run through the list one more time. Blaming others when things go wrong. That's number 1. Number 2, giving up so easily. Number 3, procrastination. Number 4, combative behavior. Number 5, dating incompatible people. Number 6, trouble stating your needs. And then lastly, number 7, putting yourself down. Now, this is not the end all be all list of self-sabotaging behavior, but I definitely could say I resonated with in my lifetime. Oh my gosh, all 7. Oh my gosh, all 7. I mean, let me know in the comments which of the ones that I stated have resonated with you, or hell, may still resonate with you. But legit, not all 7 resonate with me right now in life. But majority of them still resonate with me right now in life. So I still got some healing, some learning, and some growing to do. Now let's talk about some resolutions. We need a resolution. So some resolutions to this, to working through self-sabotaging behavior is to identify the behavior. Asking, number 1, if you want to focus on yourself first, maybe start to, in a time of feeling triggered or after a triggered moment, take some time to kind of sit with yourself and take stock of that situation. How did you behave in that situation, as well as reflecting on how that person behaved in that situation? But then also, like I learned in psychology in college, we have 4 versions of ourselves. And the one self that we are not aware of is our blind self. So we live life as our representative, but people also see a version of ourselves that we have no idea that we're displaying. So another way that you can identify the behavior to even know if you are a self-sabotaging person is to talk with other people. I learned a lot about myself from talking to my husband, and I learned a lot about myself from asking my peers questions about me as well. So if you're not really sure how to do it yourself, ask the people that are in your circle, like, do I self-sabotage? Or what ways do you see that I may not be honoring myself? And perhaps they will give you that information. Also, I've known through conversation with people, I've been able to acknowledge how I've self-sabotaged, and I've been able to tell people how they are self-sabotaging as well. So it may not even be the fact that you may be looking for that answer, but through conversations, have your reflective mind on as well. Number 2, I talk about this all the time. Learn your triggers. One of my triggers is feeling like I have to explain myself. If I feel like I have to explain myself and convince you why I think or feel or do what I do, I'm coming out swinging. My husband used to say to me, he used to ask me, yo, who hurt you to make you feel like you got to get all aggressive and you got to explain yourself? Like, that is a pain point of mine. So that's a trigger that I know. And because I know this trigger, it gives me the opportunity to kind of like think before I speak or think before I behave, to say, wait a minute, I'm talking to so-and-so right now. So-and-so has never shown me signs of not believing me or making me feel like I'm crazy or I'm dumb or I need to explain. So let me not take this trigger and manifest it in being passive aggressive or being in defense mode. You know what I'm saying? It's a blessing to be aware of your triggers because it gives you self-control. It gives you the option to choose self-control versus impulsivity. When you don't know your triggers, you are living impulsively. So number 2, identify your triggers. Number 3 is also understanding that mistakes, failures and rejections are a part of life. Don't allow mistakes to cripple you to the point that you don't try again. Don't allow rejection in the workplace, in relationships, what have you, to make you feel like you're less than. Like having a reframed, healthier understanding that these are just part of life. And one way that we can definitely work on that is with, like, I'm not a parent yet, but I feel like it's been a big disservice to my generation, maybe current generation, past generations, where, especially when it comes to men, understanding how to take rejection. Like, here's another story time. My family gathered the weekend before Thanksgiving in North Carolina at the beach. My niece is so loved. She is so, so loved. But in loving her comes enablement and comes spoiling, which is not healthy for a child. And I will tell the child no. I will tell her no. But my grandmother, who is treating her the same exact way that she treated me, struggles to tell her no. Let's Corey, that's my niece's name, lets her do a lot of stuff or whatever. And there was one particular situation where I think it was a candy apple. She wanted some type of candy apple or something. Oh, she wanted to eat the candy apple. And we were telling her no. And she had a whole meltdown. She was not listening to our grandmother, her great grandmother, and my great grandmother, her great great grandmother. So I stepped in. Her grandmother, which is my aunt, was taking a shower, so I stepped in to be the disciplinarian. And my mom and I were talking about it, and it was like, it's so important to, as much as we tell her yes, prepare her for the world and telling her no. I remember when I was a kid, my mom used to tell you, Keyona, we love you, but the world, they don't give up about you. My mom was very clear on preparing me for how the world can reject me. So I think it's really important to teach our youth the fact that failure, mistakes, and rejection are part of life, and how do you pick yourself back up when you experience it. Because if not, if we don't educate our youth, and hell, if we don't educate ourselves as adults, then we will give up, and we will be some angry people. Because I fear for us as women when it comes to rejecting men, how these men don't understand how to receive the rejection and keep it moving to the point that our lives are pretty much in danger most of the time we go out in public. May the Most High protect us from that. So that's my little spiel about reframing and having a more healthy understanding of failure, mistakes, and definitely rejection. Also, talk about it. You don't know anything unless you talk about it. And I can definitely attest to that. As much as I love to spend time with myself and I love to sit and reflect by myself, I've learned so much through conversing with people. And so one thing I have learned since I started this journey of healing and self-development, and especially being a coach and creating content to talk about this topic, is many of us are living in our trauma, are living our trauma responses, and have no idea, because we have been by ourselves, or people have enabled our behavior, or no one has spoken to us, or we haven't wanted to question why we are the way we are, why we think the way we think, or why we feel the way we feel, why we believe the way we believe. So if any of this information resonates with you, talk it out. Talk to somebody, someone in your circle. If you're in therapy right now, definitely mention it to your therapy. To your therapist. I'm here, Coach Key, as a coach to help you identify your self-sabotaging behavior and how to change that. You know what I'm saying? My formula is always knowing the past so we can proceed with the future. Not knowing the past so we can stay in the past. I'm not a therapist, but identifying the past so then we can say, oh, okay, now this is how we're going to order the steps moving forward, so that the past no longer inspires the future, but the past has enabled us to change to be better for the future. The last thing is identifying your needs, especially, I would say, in the workplace. If you're struggling to advocate for yourself, if you are struggling and you feel like you need help, the biggest thing I learned at my former job was the benefit of speaking up. Y'all know the phrase, closed mouth don't get fed. So tell people what you need from them in a relationship. Someone is doing something that's triggering to you. Someone is reminding you of your trauma. Tell them about it. Like, sometimes we have this assumption that people know better, people think like how we do. No. Not everybody is as empathic. Not everybody is as aware. Not everybody is as sympathetic. Not everybody is seeing the world from the same lens that we're seeing the world. Our experiences develop the lens that we see the world with. So it's important to tell people what your needs are, how you need them to show up, how perhaps you need help showing up even for yourself. So basically, in this live, to recap, I talked about the origin of self-sabotaging, and that comes from a behavior that we develop to adjust to a circumstance or situation. How it perpetuates into more self-sabotaging behavior is because while we use that behavior for that one situation, in that one circumstance, even after that situation has expired, we continue that behavior when it's no longer necessary. So, for example, having an abusive childhood, a verbally abusive childhood, parents always demeaning you, always aggressive, we may learn how to adapt to that situation, right? That was about our childhood. But when we don't heal from that situation, we take that same behavior that we used to adjust to our childhood, and we add that maybe in the working world or in our friendships or in our romantic relationships. Completely different scenario now, completely different circumstance, but we have applied a behavior to that. That's how we continue to perpetuate that self-sabotaging behavior. And it's so important to take time to kind of what I talked about yesterday, and I am not your words. Think about how a situation made you feel, and think about the thoughts and the thoughts that you had in that situation, and the behavior that you were compelled to perform, or if you already performed in that behavior. Like, ask yourself why. I used to have this little cousin. He's a teenager now, but he will always say why. He would ask me a question. I answer why. I answer why. Why? Start asking yourself why. That has freed me up a lot in my life and helped me on my healing journey. Always asking myself why. Let me tell you something. We put so much energy into our external world, and we don't keep that same energy with our internal world. We put so much energy in pleasing people and proving to people and achieving these external materialistic things, but we neglect our own self. We neglect our heart, our mind, our body. We have to start loving up on ourselves in a way that we keep that same energy with ourselves. And the reason why I talk about these topics, and I'm really passionate about, helping us heal from our generational trauma, our feelings of shame and guilt, is because we need to know that why so we can move forward. Not knowing that why keeps you stuck like quicksand in the situation. So, God willing, we are able to heal. And the beautiful thing about these resolutions that I stated is that it aligns perfectly with my 12-week program, Blossom Into Your Healing Journey. In my 12-week program, we talk about the pain points. We talk about what is not going right for you, or what you feel like is not going right. And then we start to peel back the layers. Okay, well, where did this stem from? Is this projection? Is this fear? Is this limiting beliefs? Is this inner child wounds? And once we know what exactly the themes are, then we're able to say, okay, we know what's up. Now let's start creating these action steps to start changing this behavior. So if that's something that you're interested in learning about, like what is the Blossom Into Your Healing Journey program, how you can apply for it. And the thing about this is many of us have an ideal transformation when it comes to healing. We're healing for very unique reasons, and we want to heal to achieve specific things. I wanted to heal so that I could quit my job, and I wanted to heal so that I can be a more attentive, more aware lover to my partner, and to be more honorable to myself, and to not perform the same dysfunctional behavior, and to not teach my children how to suppress. I wanted to heal for myself and for my future progeny. That was the transformation that I was looking for when I chose my healing journey and I got my coach. So your transformation may be very unique. And The thing is, I am your cheerleader. I am your guide. I am your coach to help you to get there. You meet me halfway and you honor yourself and do the work, and I'll meet you halfway by giving you the support, giving you the peace of mind, and giving you the tools, helping you to add more tools to your toolkit. So when we are no longer working together, you know how to stay afloat instead of drowning. That's, who I am for you. Just like an analogy that I heard on Clubhouse, when you think about working with people in the mental health field or working with a coach or whatever, is like they are like the taxi cab driver. You already know your destination. You get in the car, you tell them, I want to go this way, and they take you there. And God willing, as your coach, we will get you as close or there as possible, because ultimately how we get there, or how I help you get there, is also you committing to yourself and doing the work. But I'm healing from self-sabotaging behavior actively, so I definitely resonate with you if you are also a self-sabotager. And so know that together we will, push through it, we'll heal through it, and we will overcome, and we'll be able to reach back or reach forward to the side to the other women who come in our circle that may have the same experience, and be able to say, I just worked through that. Let me help you, sis. Let me help you, niece. Let me help you, grandma. Let me help you, mom. Helping our Black women, our women of color, heal for generations to come. So this wraps up day 5 of 25 days of Yawn Live-a-thon. Inshallah, I will re-upload this and have it available for replay in an hour or two. Thank you so much for joining this discussion. Thank you so much for supporting me as I hold myself accountable to showing up for 25 days at 3 p.m. inshallah every day. It's been really, really cool learning about myself as I do this, and so I really appreciate you. And God willing, I'll see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. Bye.